2009, Kim Winslow made history as the first woman to officiate a UFC bout. However, just because you're first to do something doesn't always make you best. During her career, Winslow became known for her bizarre and inconsistent calls in the cage. Today, we look at the fights the First Lady of Officiating will want you to forget. Welcome to the INC, and these are some of the worst Kim Winslow moments. At Strikeforce San Jose in 2010, Cris Cyborg defended her featherweight title in one of the biggest mismatches in MMA history. Cyborg was at the height of her powers going into the fight, amassing a 9-fight winning streak with all but one of her fights ending by knockout, and developing a reputation as the most destructive female fighter in the sport. Her opponent was Jan Cuddles Finney, an 8'7" fighter largely seen as a stepping stone for aspiring fighters, including losses to Miesha Tate and Shayna Baszler. Finney did little to dispel her place as a plus 2,000 underdog, as Cyborg dropped the journeywoman several times during a one-sided opening round. It was clear Finney had no place being in the cage against her much larger opponent. Unfortunately, the one person who disagreed was the most important.
This is brutal. Kim Winslow has to stop this fight. Jan is not fighting back.
Winslow somehow allowed Finney to survive into the second, suffering further damage amid jeers from the watching crowd, before a brutal knee in the middle of the round proved the final straw for the official.
A knee sent Finney down, and that might be it. I finished the round. Right in the solar plex.
Finney was given 3 separate suspensions following the fight, including a 6-month hiatus for a fractured eye socket. Surprisingly, Finney became one of Winslow's biggest defenders in the weeks after the fight, as the ref came under fire for what many considered unsafe officiating. Finney would compete once more for Strikeforce in a losing effort to Liz Carmouche, before returning to the regional scene safe in the knowledge she wouldn't face anyone as fearsome as Cyborg again. Damn, poor girl can't catch a break. Bobby Green isn't a fighter known for his skills on the ground, largely due to being scared out of it by a botched Winslow call in 2013. At UFC 156, Green made his company debut against veteran fighter Jacob Volkman, having developed a fan-favorite reputation competing for Strikeforce. Volkman used his wrestling to control a one-sided first round, before Green opened up with his striking and even landed on top after Volkman botched a failed takedown early in the second. Green was able to land several shots from top position, remaining active and visibly hurting Volkman with a sequence of elbows. There was little to suggest Green was laying preying on his wrestling-heavy opponent. Unfortunately, referee Winslow thought otherwise.
Oh, I do not agree with that, Kim Winslow. Let the man work. Green. Neither does this whole crowd.
Green nearly paid for Winslow's mistake, as Volkman took the fighters back late in the second amid jeers from the crowd towards the official. When the Just Bleed fans disagree with a stand-up, you know you messed up. Justice, however, would prevail, as Green took advantage of Volkman's cardio to claim a rear naked choke late in the third. But it was Winslow's faux pas that stayed on the fighter's mind in the hours after the fight.
I talked to Kim in the back when she was giving us our pre-fight stuff, and she was basically saying that as long as you're active, I wouldn't stand you up. I thought I was active enough, but maybe it wasn't active enough, but the crowd definitely didn't agree. I'm just the person that goes with the punches. Like, hey, if that's what it is, oh, well, I gotta keep going. I just gotta keep staying focused and not let that get me down.
Green remains with the UFC at the time of recording, developing a fan-favorite striking style that saw him become one of the breakout stars of the lockdown era. Winslow, meanwhile, was vilified for the stand-up for the rest of her career. Although given the rise of Dagestani wrestlers, fans may be more welcome to such egregious calls. John Albert's UFC career was largely forgettable, outside of a botched Winslow call from 2012. In June of that year, Albert took on Eric Perez at the Ultimate Fighter finale, looking to make amends for his first company loss to Ivan Menjivar 4 months earlier. The match started in brisk fashion, with Albert taking the fight to the ground early and threatening his Mexican opponent with triangle and armbar attempts. Perez managed to reverse position before locking his own armbar mate in the round. Despite Albert showing no sign of tapping, the ever-dependable Winslow had seen enough.
The referee has stopped it. Albert did not tap. Albert did not tap. He was trying to counter it and step over his head. You don't hear a verbal tap. You don't see a tap. Albert was trying to work his way and try to step over the head of Perez.
Albert immediately appealed to the Nevada State Athletic Commission to get the result overturned, a sentiment Dana White seemingly shared by paying Albert his win bonus despite losing the fight. Winslow, meanwhile, later claimed she stopped the match due to interpreting Albert's screams of pain as a verbal submission, an excuse used by fellow maligned ref Steve Mazzagatti following a similar stoppage between Ronda Rousey and Sarah D'Arlelio. Things wouldn't get better for Albert. After failing to get the results overturned, the fighter suffered losses to Scott Jorgensen and Yautsen Meza before being released by the UFC in 2013. Albert hasn't fought in MMA since. King Mo was one of the most outspoken fighters in MMA, something Winslow found out to her cost in 2012. At Strikeforce Las Vegas, Mo took on unbeaten prospect Lorenz Larkin, looking to return to form after losing his light heavyweight title to Rafael Feijão 18 months earlier. Most feared the jump in competition would prove too much for Larkin, and Mo justified the critics by taking the fight to the ground early and hammering Larkin with a constant stream of ground and pound. Mo was ready to put the final touches to his win come the start of the second round, but thanks to our good friend Winslow, his attempt to do so took much longer than expected.
He's in hard right now. I can hear it. Wow, you can hear those shots crisply. Ground and pound, steady right hands. This could be flying. Larkin's almost done. King Mo, and he does it. King Mo.
What time do you call this?
Mo was incredibly critical of Winslow following the fight, suggesting the official allowed Larkin to take unnecessary damage by not stopping the fight sooner. While Mo maintained his composure in post-fight interview, his true feelings came to the fore in the post-fight press conference.
The commission, they need to do something with her, put her through let her take a fight or something and give her a bad rep. Let her fight Cyborg or something. Let her fight Cyborg. And then let's do a leg stoppage with her. Because I watched her almost get Finney killed by Cyborg. And I think maybe the tables need to be turned. Put me in there as a ref, and I'll just do a terrible job like her.
Winslow had suffered the opposite issue earlier that night, when she was accused of stopping a match between Jean Vellante and Trevor Smith prematurely, with Smith later suggesting the maligned official had no place in the sport. The fallout of the Larkin fight had an adverse effect on Mo. The fighter was granted a 6-month suspension after testing positive for drostanolone in a post-fight drug test, and was later released by Strikeforce after offensive comments made about Nevada Commissioner Pat Lundvall following his hearing. Mo retired in 2019 with 21 wins and 10 losses, and holds the distinction of being one of the highest-profile fighters to never fight in the UFC. And now, time for a few dishonorable mentions. Former champion Miesha Tate had some choice words for Winslow after stopping her match with Kat Zingano at the Ultimate Fighter finale.
When she stopped the fight, the first thing I did was look up at her and say, why did you stop the fight? And she goes, because your face is a mess. I'm like, seriously? I'm like, that's why you stopped the fight? I'm like, well, your face is a mess and they still let you work.
Ooh. The Nevada crowd were quick to voice their displeasure after Winslow stopped a regional fight prematurely. Her Disney cosplay. Ugh. This is the INC. Please like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a video.